welcome back to Cosmic Life Astrology. Today we are talking about the week of April 7th through the 13th. This is like my third or fourth time trying to tape this video. I've had some technical difficulties along with my dog who in the background can't seem to settle down. So if you hear her moving around, just disregard it because I can't keep restarting this. So this is typical Mercury retrograde. Coming to a close, thank goodness. We have a very active week this week. We have Mercury stationing direct, we have the Libra full moon, and we have Venus stationing direct, all in 1 week. And so we're talking about personal planets stationing direct, a full moon activation because it's the first full moon after the eclipses. And we have to talk about some things because we have a lot of support with all of this energy. Now on Monday, Mercury stations direct at 26 degrees of Pisces, and it will be conjuncting the North Node. We also have Venus and Saturn conjuncting each other only a couple of degrees away. And we have a sextile to Uranus and Taurus. We have a trine to Mars and Cancer. And we have the full moon with the sun conjunct Chiron. Okay, let's talk about all the things. First, Mercury retrograde. Mercury stationing direct after a 3-week stint of a retrograde cycle that basically was Mercury following Venus around in the sky, going back over the same territory that Venus was going over. So really highlighting things that you need to rethink about: love, money, finances, what you're trying to create in your life, what brings balance and peace and harmony in your life. And when I say love, it's not just about partnerships romantically, it's also about friendships and, you know, the people that you're close to. There may have been a rethinking of your friendships, your alliances with others, and who you're associating with. But I think for a larger majority of people, there is especially a highlight on love partnerships. And we say this as it comes to a close, featuring a full moon in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, which is about partnerships, right? It's about a lot of things, but it's very much a significant energy about partnerships and bringing balance, right? The yin and the yang kind of energy. And so with Mercury stationing direct, we're now able to move forward. And we have all personal planets that are going to be moving forward slowly. Don't forget, Mars is still in its post-retrograde shadow period, so he's moving slowly forward, taking those, toddler steps. And now we have Venus and Mercury ready to move forward. Okay, so they're not going to be moving quickly. It's going to take them some time to get their bearings and get up to their normal speed. However, the personal planets are all ready to take that step forward and to move to a new chapter, I feel, because we're under the eclipse energy still. So, there's been the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo helping us to release and let go. And we're only 2 weeks away from the Aries solar eclipse that just happened. And so we have new beginnings available to us. And I think the Mercury and Venus retrograde cycle was all about preparing us for the new chapter that will be available, that new beginning that will come with an Aries solar eclipse. I do think that Venus and Mercury going over the same territory, was speaking very loudly to us on what we need to pay attention to, what we need to change in our love life, in our financial world, in our career, in, what it is we're putting our emotions and desires into, and what is making you happy, what it is that you're trying to create long term. Mercury conjuncting that North Node when he's stationing direct means that there's a fated component involved. This, as I mentioned during my Mercury retrograde video, this could be a fated announcement, fated news, fated communication, a fated person coming in or coming back into your stratosphere. After maybe refraining, right? Because during a retrograde period, things are held back, you know. People could be held back from, you know, from your world because of that retrograde energy. There's very much a seriousness about this with Venus and Saturn conjuncting each other. You know, you're taking this decision very seriously, whatever it is, okay? And it's also highlighting what it is that you want, what you desire for the long term, what it is you're willing to work towards, especially with love and money. You know, what are you willing to put in that, you know, that grind for, you know, and what do you want to make last for the long term of your life, you know? With this all happening in Pisces, you know, we're doing this off of the vision that we have, you know, for our life, what it is that we're trying to create, what we want to manifest. You know, we've been basically bouncing back and forth between that Aries Pisces energy, which is all about what it is we're envisioning and what it is that we're going to be able to make tangible and physical, right? And real. And so, you know, we've been basically seesawing between that Pisces Aries energy of what do we want? What can we make happen in our world? You know, what it is that I want to create for my life. How do I envision my life to be in 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you know, and what action, Aries, do I need to take to make that happen, right? We've been really, this has been a strong part of this Venus and Mercury retrograde and honoring your desire, okay? Now, we have Uranus making a sextile to all this energy in Pisces. And we also have Mars in Cancer making a trine to all the Pisces energy as well. And so Uranus is going to be able to shake things up, bring us the breakthroughs that, you know, are very much needed and wanted, you know, because you've been wanting to change things and make something happen in that Aries part of your chart. You've been wanting to create something new. And that sextile to Uranus is going to help bring that breakthrough, make things happen. It's going to get you out of that rut that you may have been stuck in. And with the trine to Mars, we're going to honor our passions. We're going to take action, you know, and we're going to be able to maybe cut ties where we need to cut ties in order to honor the journey that we're trying to go on, you know, or to honor, you know, the next chapter that you're trying to start in your life, right? You may have to cut ties with the past. And with Mars and Cancer, you know, Mars and Cancer can very much, you know, be looking back at the past because Cancer is very nostalgic. And so Mars has a hard time looking back at the past because he wants to take forward motion, you know, he wants to move ahead. But while in Cancer, he's kind of stuck looking at what was. And so that could be a component to what you're feeling right now or what you have been experiencing. Now with the Libra full moon, I think this is part of a bigger picture because when we had a Libra solar eclipse in October of 2023, it was at 21 degrees of Libra. And so this full moon is at 23 degrees of Libra, which essentially means that this full moon is in that solar eclipse territory. And when that solar eclipse happened, it was conjuncting the South Node. So it was a new beginning having to do with letting go of something, or a lessening of energy in that Libra part of your chart. And now with the full moon, within 2 degrees away from where that solar eclipse happened, we're putting an end to that cycle. There's going to be a culmination of what may have started during October of 2023, where you're now able to close that out and begin again, especially while we're still under eclipse energy ourselves right now. I think for a lot of people, there's going to be relationship dynamics that are going to be, you know, really at the forefront of your attention. You know, what if you became single during the October 2023 eclipse cycle? Now may be the end of that chapter, you know, because during that time, we had the North Node in Aries. So there was a need to focus on yourself. And then we had the eclipse conjuncting Chiron, a need to heal yourself, do your healing work. And now here we are, we have the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo. We have, you know, the nodes in different areas of our chart. And we just had the last Aries solar eclipse. So there is a sense of, you know, a dynamic with myself and we dynamic that is coming to a close, you know, where you may be ready to have a new beginning with a new relationship if you've been single. There may be, for those that have been in unhealthy relationships, a finalizing or a chapter closing within that relationship. Or there could be some major new beginnings happening in relationships that may have taken some work and may have required some healing to be able to have this fresh new start. And I think with Venus stationing direct, a half an hour after this Libra full moon, there is going to be a sense of, yes, I'm ready. You know, the full moon is ruled by Venus. And we have Uranus and Taurus, okay, ruled by Venus. That's making a sextile to all the energy in Pisces, helping have breakthroughs, right? So there's very much a Venus activation. Venus is going direct. Venus is the ruler of the full moon. We have Uranus also supporting all this energy this week. And it's in the sign that Venus also rules. And we have Venus conjuncting Saturn and a couple of degrees away from the North Node and Mercury. So this is a very Venusian week, a very strong focus on what it is that you desire. What do you want? What do you want in your relationships? What are you ready to move forward with? Whether it be in your career goals, whether it be with money, you know, you may have had to make some changes in your financial life. Maybe you have new goals that you want to achieve. Maybe there are dynamics that have been going on with friendships and groups that you're associated with where you're realizing you don't identify with those anymore. And you need to find a new tribe. There could be that. There's a lot of things that could be. It all depends on your personal chart and where this is highlighting in your chart. I can only give you, you know, the generic possibilities of what could be happening for the majority of people, right? But when you have a Libra full moon and a half an hour later, the ruler of that full moon stations direct, I do think that there's going to be a decision where it's like, yes, I'm ready to go for this. I'm ready to take action. I'm ready to have a new beginning. because Venus has been in a period of reflection during her retrograde. She's been really, listening to her heart, her desires, what she wants to create. And Mercury's been helping facilitate that, helping her rethink things and reconsider. And, maybe see information that needed to be seen in order to make a more clear decision on where she wants to go. And, Venus is going to move forward in a sign of her exaltation. So her energy is very strong and influential during this full moon. And we have Jupiter in Gemini making a loose trine to the full moon, which is also another added assistance in the background of hope and opportunity and being able to expand your horizons, being able to really consider what's possible for you. Now, even though Jupiter is in his detriment, he's not, as strong as he'd like to be in Gemini, but Jupiter is still Jupiter. He is a benefic. So, with this trine to the full moon, maybe there is some things that are going on in your mind because Jupiter's in Gemini, where it's been hard to have faith and hope. And this full moon highlights something for you that renews that sense of hope and faith in what's possible, in what you can create, especially when it comes to conversations, because they're both in air signs. So there could be communication that suddenly brings you clarity, brings you hope, and makes you realize you may have been overthinking things, Jupiter and Gemini. You may have been having a different perspective than what was really going on behind the scenes. And now that you have that clarity, you can, you can have this, this culmination and emotional attunement, because it's a full moon after all. And we have the sun conjuncting Chiron, which is also in a loose sextile to Jupiter and Gemini. And this is highlighting the wounds from the past, what we've been healing, especially since last spring when we had Chiron conjuncting the solar eclipse and the North Node. So we've been doing a lot of healing work for the past year. And with the sun conjunct Chiron during this full moon, it can be a sense of recognizing how far you've come in your healing journey and feeling proud of that. And that enabling you to be brave enough to move forward. So, it's a lot. This week is going to be a very active week. I think a lot of people are going to feel the shifts happening this week because we have two personal planets stationing direct. We have a full moon. And relationships are very much going to be a highlight of this energy. There's, that dynamic of what you want and what you've been wanting to create and the new beginnings that we're trying to push forward, especially, as there's been retrograde cycles and personal planets back to back. And Venus doesn't retrograde all the time like Mercury does. It only happens once every year and a half. So there's been a lot of focus on reimagining what you want, what you need, what it is you're striving towards, what you're trying to create for your life, what brings you a sense of peace and harmony, what gives you fulfillment. There's been a lot of that at play. And this year is a big year for big shifts in our life. The next big shift that we have is we just had Neptune enter Aries. And I know I'm late to make a video on that. I'm not sure if I'm going to make a video or a post on it. I have been trying to overcome a very prolonged sickness. So, you know, forgive me for that. But the next thing that we have is Saturn entering Aries. And then we have Jupiter entering Cancer, where it's exalted. And then we have Uranus entering Gemini. So we have significant shifts that are only going to help us make bigger changes in our life during this year. So, you know, there's been a repeated focus on, you know, the universe nudging us to get rid of what doesn't work for you. Stop going with the status quo. Not conforming to things that are not in line with your desires and what you want for your life, what your vision is for your life, and helping us open the door to what's possible. And so we're going to see what's possible become possible during these big shifts. And some of it may happen pretty quickly, especially with Uranus going into Gemini in July. That's a very quick energy. We'll get into that as we get closer to it. But I think we're all, you know, I've been repeating myself in many videos where we're all in for big changes in some way. And, you know, you have to look at your chart to see, you know, is it going to be the Aries part of your chart? If you have personal planets, especially in the early degrees of Aries, you're going to feel a lot of, you know, the influences from the Venus and Mercury retrograde that are finishing, Neptune going into Aries, Saturn going into Aries, right? If you have any personal planets in the early degrees of Gemini, you're going to feel Uranus shifting into Gemini. Same thing for anybody with personal planets in Cancer. When Jupiter goes into Cancer, you're going to be in for some really good opportunities because Jupiter is exalted. He's very strong. He's like, you know, as they say in the astrology world, Jupiter in Cancer is like jolly old Saint Nicholas, right? Very generous. And, you know, we just have to ride the wave and allow things to happen. Embrace change when it comes and know that whatever changes occur, it's to help you stay in line with your destiny. You know, if you were not in a place that you should be, the universe has a way of kicking you back on track to where you need to be. And eclipse season is great for that. But also when slower moving planets shift into different signs, that also helps to kickstart an energy shift. So I digress. This week is, I love it. I love that Mercury is stationing direct because I'm a Gemini rising, and I always am affected by Mercury retrogrades. And we have Venus stationing direct. We have the Libra full moon closing out a bigger chapter from October 2023. We have a lot of support from Uranus and Mars helping us make moves and shake things up and break things up and, you know, really move ahead. And I love it. So I hope this week is good to all of you. I hope you guys have positive developments. Please feel free to share your comments on what transpires for you this week and how you're feeling this energy. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Help me grow the channel, and stay tuned for more videos.